Yo. Analytics off the chain, all the channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. I'm a headliner.
Yo, what is going on, Headliner Nation? Welcome back to the Fantasy Headliners. Views are popping, subs are rolling in right now. We're dropping knowledge every single day. We're just a few days away from our draft guide becoming available as well. So make sure you pre-order yours right now, thefantasyheadliners.com, link below. But things are going crazy right now, and it's not even July yet. That's awesome. I absolutely love it. So today's video, we got to keep the knowledge rolling. And I want to talk about, as of this moment, my top 3 favorite rookies for redraft leagues. Now, keep in mind, it is only June. So a lot of this could change over the next couple of months for when drafts really start to fire up. ADP could change a whole lot for them. Situation could change for them. Things could change for guys that aren't on this video. And just because there's somebody that's not on this video doesn't necessarily mean I don't like that guy. He's just not really in my top 3 favorite as of right now. But you can rest assured that rookies, we'll talk about them even more over the next couple of months. Who should you be taking a shot at? And who's going to be your guy? And I mean, you could basically say that these guys are some of my must-have rookies as of right now. Maybe my Manscaped must-have rookies. That is right. Our friends over at Manscaped are back for the 2022 season with us here at the Fantasy Headliners. And we are going to be rolling out the goodness over there again. So make sure that you head over to manscaped.com. And when you check out, use code word headliners. You're going to get 20% off your entire order. And you're going to get free shipping. Again, manscaped.com. Let me pop the graphic up for you just one more time. 20% off and free shipping. Use headliners at checkout to get that discount. Thanks again to our friends over at Manscaped for all that. But like I said, today's video is going to be all about the rookies that I most want on my team as of right now. And again, things could change a whole lot. There's no telling what could happen over the next couple of months. So this video as of right now, if you're going to be drafting soon, which I highly encourage you not to, these will be the guys that you'll want. If you're going to be drafting later on, though, make sure you take some snippets from this video. Keep it in the back of your mind. Let it marinate a little bit, and then use it later on. But ladies and gentlemen, the first one up is going to be Chris Olave, wide receiver, first round pick out of Ohio State for the New Orleans Saints this year. And I'll tell you what, man, I think Olave could have a huge year. You've heard me talk a little bit about Jarvis Landry already, and Jarvis Landry I do think is going to have a good season. But there is one thing that really concerns me. Yes, that's right. It is my good friend Michael Thomas that people get upset with me about. Look, Michael Thomas just doesn't look healthy. He just doesn't. If you see the video that he posted about rehabbing or whatever it was a couple of weeks ago, the guy's doing box steps in June. Like, that's the rehab you're going through right now? Like, my man, that's not good. Like, you've had enough time to recover that you should be out there on the field right now, really being able to get in some work, and you're doing box steps and saying it's recovery. I mean, Michael Thomas has been beat up the last couple of years. If you remember correctly, too, we talked about this in a video not too long ago about Michael Thomas and all the stats that he's been dealing with. I apologize. My voice is going in and out a little bit. Been coaching a whole lot. Been a lot of yelling. Okay, not a ton of yelling, but you get it. So, I mean, the last time that Michael Thomas scored a touchdown, the last time that he found the end zone, right, was way back when. Way back when. Like, it feels like a lot has happened over the last couple of years. But he didn't get anything in last year, right? Right. He didn't score a touchdown at all in 2020. Right. The last time he scored a touchdown was back in 2019 when he scored a touchdown in week 16. That's the last time Michael Thomas found the end zone. Was on December 22nd, 2019. I mean, just think about how much the world has been through since the last time Michael Thomas scored a touchdown. And the dude is still trying to work his way back. Now, the one thing that we do know is that for the New Orleans Saints this year, their quarterback is going to be Jameis Winston. And Jameis Winston, I mean, he can toss it, right? He can toss it. Don't forget, just a couple of years ago, 33 touchdowns in his final year in Tampa Bay. And he's still only 28 years old, right? I mean, he's still a pretty young quarterback. Hopefully the last couple of years in New Orleans, playing behind Drew Brees, last year trying to take over, obviously had that injury early on in the season. He was actually 5-2. He was 5-2 early on in the season last year. He had thrown 14 touchdowns to only 3 interceptions to start the year last year. Jameis Winston was playing very, very well. I mean, first game against Green Bay, he was 14 for 20 for 148 yards and threw 5 touchdowns. Had a bad game against Carolina, was 0-2, but then he went 2-0, 1-0, 4-1, 1-0, and then 1-0 before getting hurt. So maybe he is starting to limit some of those turnovers. Maybe he is starting to develop into that quarterback that a first overall pick was used on a few years back. And he had a guy in Tampa Bay that he routinely connected with in the form of Mike Evans, which if you had to give me a comparison in this offense, Chris Olave meets Mike Evans a lot more than what Mike Evans would meet like Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas would be more of the Chris Godwin type in this offense. He's going to be winning in those intermediate routes. Yeah, he's going to win down the field often, but Chris Olave is the guy that's going to be able to win all over the field. I mean, he is going to be able to win. He's going to be able to win on the deep ball. He's going to be able to win regardless of where he's at. On the intermediate routes, on screens, on everything. That is what he is going to be able to do. And that's what Michael Thomas did during his time with Jameis Winston in Tampa Bay. From 2015 all the way to 2019, when Jameis Winston was the quarterback there. I mean, Mike Evans, again, is one of the most solid wide receivers in the league. In 2015, 1,200 receiving yards, 1,300 receiving yards and 12 touchdowns, 1,000 receiving yards, 1,500, 1,100. I mean, the dude was just an absolute animal. And yes, it's because he's an amazing wide receiver, but you have to keep in mind, too, that there had to be somebody to get him the ball. The guy that got him the ball was Jameis Winston. So the pros for Chris Olave are the big plays are going to be there. The big plays are going to be there for Chris Olave. He is going to have the opportunity to stretch the field more than a Michael Thomas, more than a Jarvis Landry. He's going to win those routes down the field, but he's not just a straight line burner. He is a guy that can win everywhere. So for me, yes, the big plays are going to be there for Chris Olave, and that's going to be his pro, is because that's something that he is going to be able to do that not everybody on that team will be able to do. Now, the cons for Chris Olave is going to be, if everybody is healthy, that's a lot of mouths to feed, right? Especially considering whatever happens with Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara, we've heard over the last couple of days, could be looking at a suspension coming up soon. If that happens, that's one less person that you have to feed. But if everyone's on the field and everyone's healthy, that's Chris Olave, Jarvis Landry, Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas. At that point, Chris Olave could get knocked down a little bit. But in our videos recently, I mean, Jake just did one a few days ago that was great, talking about first-round hit rates for wide receivers, running backs, what that means, how you draft those guys. And the evidence is clear that winning football teams nail their first-round picks at running back, and then they are able to grab wide receivers later on, especially rookies, like a Justin Jefferson, that are able to blow up and become a guy that finishes, or Jamar Chase, that finishes as a wide receiver one type of player. For me, Chris Olave, of all the wide receivers in this year's rookie class, I believe he has the best chance to be a wide receiver one. Now, what about the running back position? Well, my guy at the running back position right now is going to be Isaiah Spiller. His ADP coming in just in the early 12th round right now. And playing for Los Angeles, I thought this was a great fit. When the draft pick was made, I absolutely loved it because honestly, I don't think it hurts. I don't think it hurts at all Austin Eckler and what he does and what he's capable of doing. I'm not worried about that. Some people were talking about, oh, what does that do for Austin Eckler and his carries on the ground? Not much. I do know that Austin Eckler obviously last year was able to stay healthy, right? And that was a big part of it. But he was able to stay healthy and take on a pretty large workload. His first season, over 200 carries, ran for 911 yards, 12 touchdowns. Isaiah Spiller is going to get some opportunities in that offense, okay? He's going to get some opportunities to run the football. We know Austin Eckler is going to get a majority of those rushing attempts. But when you look at it, Austin Eckler had over 200 carries last year. But then Justin Jackson had 68, Larry Roundtree had 36, Joshua Kelly had 33. So you have to also imagine that if Isaiah Spiller is the true RB2 in this offense, that there could be anywhere from 90 to 110 rushing opportunities for him. If that happens, that's a decent amount of yards that you could pick up on the ground, especially if he is a guy that, even if they decide to bump Austin Eckler down a little bit, and let's say they decide, okay, for Austin Eckler, we want to take him down more into the 180 range for rushing attempts, that right there for Isaiah Spiller, now you're talking about the potential of reaching anywhere between 135 to 150 rushing attempts on the ground for Isaiah Spiller. And if he can be efficient, if he can be a guy that runs for 4 or 5 yards per carry, that's going to give him a decent season. So if we think on the high end that he runs 150 times next season, let's split the difference and say that, okay, he gets 4.5 rushing yards per attempt. That's going to give him 675 rushing yards next year. So I do think there's a little variation there. We could see a little bit less than that. We could see maybe him approaching more along the lines of 800 rushing yards. But the opportunity is going to be there for him as a backup. But then, more importantly, his pro is that he would be the first man up. So, number one, if Austin Eckler is healthy, he's going to get that RB2 work in that offense. Some short yardage situation, relieving Austin Eckler, maybe if it's for an entire drive, a full drive. We know this is a really good offensive team. They're going to put some points up on some people. In those games that they do, maybe Isaiah Spiller sees more of those touches towards the back end of the game. If they do, that's great. These are all great opportunities for him if he's the RB2 and the guy that will be coming in immediately after Austin Eckler. But not only that, if there's an issue with Eckler, he's injured in any way, misses any time, then Isaiah Spiller becomes the guy. He becomes the guy. Then we're seeing more pass catching work. We're seeing an opportunity for 15 to 20 attempts on the ground. So he becomes the guy and somebody that you have to have right away. So if you draft Austin Eckler in the 12th round, I'm using a pick on Isaiah Spiller. I am getting him as my backup. I want to make sure that he is a guy that I have on my roster if something happens to Austin Eckler. Now, the cons would be if Eckler's healthy, then you're not going to have really the type of volume that you would need to start Isaiah Spiller on a weekly basis. He's not going to get any of the passing work because that's going to be Eckler. And we saw Eckler really take a step forward being utilized at the goal line last year. One of the reasons he scored as many touchdowns as he did was because when they got closer to the goal line, they left him in the game. They did different things with him, still running the football, receiving out of the backfield. They still utilized him closer to the goal line. And because of that, Austin Eckler doesn't lose any value like a lot of other quote-unquote pass-catching backs do. Because a lot of times you see that where they get pulled out the goal line. That would not be the case this year. That would not be the case. So for Isaiah Spiller, again, a lot of his fantasy value in 2022 would be predicated on Austin Eckler maybe missing some time. But we don't want that. We don't want that. So we get him, we hold on to him, we draft him. Maybe we do use them in some certain situations, really good matchups where Los Angeles could go out ahead by quite a bit. And then we see a little bit more Isaiah Spiller in the fourth quarter to relieve Austin Eckler a little bit. Maybe he does score a touchdown. Maybe they do give him a little bit of that goal line work this year. Maybe just a little bit less for Eckler. Not a whole lot, but just enough to keep Isaiah Spiller in there. So we'll see what happens with it. But Isaiah Spiller for me is a guy I definitely want to have. And now taking a look at wide receivers again. Now, this guy, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit back and forth on. Not a whole lot, because in the draft, I liked him. I think he definitely has a skill set that if he continues to work on things and grow as a football player, then he becomes a guy that is going to be very good in the NFL. And a lot of people, when they take a look at him, they say, okay, well, the reason that they went and got Treylon Burks, Tennessee, is because he's basically A.J. Brown, right? That's what a lot of people said. And I don't hate that comparison at all. I think that comparison is pretty close to being right on. So I don't mind it. Right now, his ADP is sitting in the 6th round, right towards the end of the 6th round. And a lot of people have said they're kind of going to skip on Treylon Burks and Robert Woods and maybe that entire offense because they don't think it's going to be balanced. They think it's going to be way too run heavy. Well, just remember, okay? Just remember that back in 2019, which was A.J. Brown's rookie season, by the way, they were pretty run heavy then because Derrick Henry had 303 rushing attempts. Do we think that Derrick Henry is going to have over 303 rushing attempts? Possibly, but keep in mind, that's a lot of rushing attempts. So Derrick Henry had 300 rushing attempts in 2019 when A.J. Brown was a rookie. A.J. Brown had 84 targets, caught 52 of those for just over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. That's a pretty darn good year for a rookie wide receiver, all right? That's a pretty good year back in 2019. So if you're looking at Treylon Burks and saying to yourself, well, I'm not going to draft him because I just can't trust that offense to get him the ball enough, like how much are you wanting him to get the ball? Like what is your baseline here for production that you're saying, oh, I can't take 84 targets? Because we would have to assume he's going to be somewhere in that area, right? A.J. Brown was essentially the wide receiver 1 that year on that team, all right? He was essentially the wide receiver 1 that season. You've got Robert Woods coming back, which, again, is going to essentially play the role that, like, Corey Davis did that year when Corey Davis had 69 targets for 601 yards and 2 touchdowns. So Treylon Burks, to me, plays that A.J. Brown role a little bit more, where Robert Woods would then play that Corey Davis role a little bit more. So Treylon Burks, if he gets 80-something targets and catches 50 of them for 100 or 1,000 yards, if he's that efficient, A.J. Brown was the wide receiver 15 that year. Just think for a second. If you draft the overall wide receiver 15 at 6.11, are you going to be happy with that? Yes, you are. If you're not happy with it, you need to lower your expectations. They're unbearable, okay? So listen to me. Treylon Burks, for me, he's going to be the wide receiver 1. We don't know for sure how healthy Robert Woods will be to begin the season. He's going to be the wide receiver 1 in this offense. He was drafted to take over that A.J. Brown role. A.J. Brown, while the volume wasn't crazy, we know that Ryan Tannehill was efficient with him down the field. So why couldn't Ryan Tannehill be efficient with Treylon Burks? In fact, Treylon Burks probably has a better college statistical line coming out than what A.J. Brown did. Okay, A.J. Brown had to deal with Shea Patterson, who's garbage. Okay, Treylon Burks, has a better stat line coming out of college than what A.J. Brown did, and look at it, right? So if the comparisons are there, if the build is there, the physique, the ability, all those things, we're not looking at Treylon Burks being Justin Jefferson. We're not looking at him being Jamar Chase. We're looking at him being rookie year A.J. Brown, which is volume won't be great. Efficiency will definitely be there. He's going to score some touchdowns. And when he does that, he's going to end as a mid to high wide receiver 2. That's the upside there. That's the pros. Now, the cons would be, yes, they are run heavy. They go back to Derrick Henry quite a bit. They get him as much touches on the ground as possible. And oh, by the way, Woods comes back. He's fully healthy. And Woods is actually the wide receiver 1 on the team, not Treylon Burks. Then at that point, we do have an issue where Treylon Burks ends up falling a little bit. But best case scenario is the dude ends up finishing as a mid wide receiver 2 because he does exactly what A.J. Brown did his rookie year. The comparisons are all there. If there's an argument against it, you can argue that Treylon Burks isn't as good as A.J. Brown, but what ground do you really have to stand on? Like, what research do you have to back that up? Because when you look at the tape and everything, Treylon Burks plays like A.J. Brown, all right? That's a tough one for me because Treylon Burks in the 6th round, there are some guys around there that I like. I think this year, more than previous years, we're a little bit off on Tennessee. You know, it's a little bit harder to gauge how they're going to be headed into the 2022 season. But I would encourage you that if Treylon Burks is sitting there and you draft him as, let's say, your wide receiver 3, for instance, wide receiver 2 potentially, I think you're going to be good. If you draft him as your wide receiver 1, you probably got some problems that could pop up later in the season. But wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 on your team, I don't really hate it. Just make sure that you get some guys with some high upside potential a little bit later on in your draft. But ladies and gentlemen, my top 3 rookies that you should be taking a look at right now in your redraft leagues. And again, lots of things are going to change between now and when your draft may actually take place, more along the lines of that Labor Day holiday. So make sure you continue to stay here on the Fantasy Headliners. Listen to everything we've got to say all off-season long. Use that to formulate your own opinion, and then come draft day, you knock it out of the park. So hit that like button for me. Smash it, ladies and gentlemen. Smash it. Make sure you go pre-order your draft guide as well. That's going to be dropping in just a couple of days. Leave me a comment down below. Of the 3 guys I listed here, which one do you want? Which is the one of the 3 here that you absolutely need to have? Subscribe and stay on the channel. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get out of here. Stay safe and stay healthy, and I'll catch you all on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.
Analytics off the chain, other channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. Y'all stuck on 3rd down. Your content's plain Jane. Headliners on top now. We gonna move and change. Podcast off the rip. Draft guide, so legit. Fantasy world, our game tight. You know we about that chub life. Stuck in a rut and you need some motivation. Head to the channel for this Headliner Nation. I'm a headliner.